Well, hello and welcome to my workshop where you join me with Toplydale as a backdrop, but the plan today is to get on with our £500 project layout for part 2. Now, I stuck the baseboards out of the office the other day so I can start cutting out the canal for the layout. Hopefully Mark and Jonathan are going to approve of what I've done, particularly since it cost nothing else apart from a little bit of my time. Right, so stick with us for part 2, where obviously we're going to be cutting out a canal, we're going to be building platforms, we're going to be ballasting track, and we're going to be weathering track as well. All that's to come in part 2, and we hope you enjoy our £500 challenge. In terms of the plan for the canal on the layout, it's really quite simple. It's going to come in here, it'll run along the front of the layout, so it'll make a nice scenic feature in front of the layout where we have quite a large empty open space. Now, I've used an oscillating saw-powered tool to actually cut this out, and what that means is it makes it really simple for me to cut whatever shape I need. So using the oscillating saw, I can cut straight through the surface of the baseboard, which cuts out this piece, and then using the same tool, I'll be able to cut out the notches in the framework here, so they can all be taken out, which means then this original piece that I cut out, that can be just dropped back in to the baseboard to make our canal base. So I've now got a small dropped section here, which means we then could create that kind of nice canal scene in front of the railway. Probably add a little bit of landmass in front and behind of that as well to give it a little bit of shape and interest as well. And we've got some great products as well in the key model shop that we can use for this. So we'll use the latch and shuttering for the edging. And we could probably get about maybe hopefully one pack of that. We can cut it down into 15mm deep strips to fit around the edges of this canal. And hopefully we're going to end up with a really nice, interesting scene here as well. Just that little change in level of baseboards. Now, the most complicated part of that, I think, is using the power tool to cut this out. But I've been using one of those quite a bit lately for a lot of woodwork on Toplydale as well. I found a really useful and versatile tool to do different projects around the railway and also around the home as well. So if you like to DIY, they're handy as well. So now I've done this, I'm just going to screw this piece down, so fit it back into the base of the baseboard here. Then I better pack everything up and head back to HQ. Put the power tools away. And then we can get the track weathered, then we can get on with building platforms, then we can get on with ballasting. And like I said before, hopefully not spend too much money, otherwise I will be in trouble with Mark and Jonathan. Anyway, stick with us and we'll continue the project.
Well, Mike, it looks like you've been busy.
Yeah, hopefully you approve of what I've done and how much I've not spent.
I mean, we agreed on a canal basin, but now that I've seen this, having just a canal, I think it's probably visually better. What do you think, Mark?
I think it works better. I think the canal basin would have been fine, but you might have found that the canal basin might have been a bit too small for the space that was there if you wanted a realistic looking thing, whereas at least...
Yeah, I think that was my sense when I started cutting it, as well as that it was easier to cut out a canal than a canal basin. Yes. But we won't go there. But it was going to feel it was potentially a bit too dominant in the scene. Having a canal where we can do different treatments on each of the banks, I think will look really nice.
I think so too. Yeah, it's a nice scenic break rather than one big lump.
Yeah, as such. Exactly. Yeah. You'll be really pleased to know that cutting that out was completely free. And it's
wow,
money.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you feeling all right?
Yeah. All it took was some of my time.
There you go.
That's all that. That's all slide.
And what is time? And of course, you also painted the track work at the same time. Does that?
You spent some money.
Did you now?
Look, he seems to love spending money without any form of consultation. This is a team effort, isn't it? Yes, clearly not. Clearly not.
Was that the phrase? No I in team.
Something like that. All right. So what's our next plan for today? I mean, you've got our points for the crossover that we've agreed on putting in as well.
Yep.
You've got your rail joiners. Of course, I do notice that you've painted the track before you've done the track work.
Yes, because it's one of those jobs that actually I really don't want to be doing in this particular room. So because I spray painted it, I did it outside, back at my workshop where I've got plenty of space to do so. And we haven't got lots of overspray stuck in this room, which isn't a very nice room to do that. Which I think is one of the important things to say with some of these processes is actually, particularly something like spray paint, you need to be in a well-ventilated area as a minimum, and should really have a respirator on as well when you're spraying to make sure you don't inhale any paint fumes into your lungs and things. So I did all that at home, at my workshop. Slight minor complication then putting the track in, but not a big one. What I'm going to do is cut the rails like I would do anyway, and then I'll just have to clean up a tiny bit at the end of each section of rail in order to actually slot the rail joins on so we get good electrical contact for them. So it hasn't really complicated it too far. But
okay. Well, that's good then. Well, the biggest thing is what you've done so far hasn't cost all too much money. Don't forget, we have now got less than £200 to finish the entire project.
Yes, a few less, because we were £198 left after part one. I think it was £301 and something we spent in part one. We've got just under £200 left, but that includes everything that's here apart from the single can of spray paint that I did buy to do the weathering of the track. So I do now owe our budget another £7 to be taken off it, so we've got £191 left.
Do you think that maybe this 500 challenge may be a bit too fine, Mark?
I'm sure you'll be able to do it. I reckon we'll be able to beg, steal, borrow to get to ourselves to the £500 mark.
I think
Probably more of the steal and borrow, I'd say.
Well, in a nice way, of course.
I think whatever we do with the £500 challenge, there's bits where you need to spend money, and there's bits where you just have to start compromising to make it work as well. And we've still got plenty of areas where we can make good choices about where we spend the money. But for me, compromising on the presentation of the track, how the layout works, the basics of the weathering, which really set the tone for everything, none of that for me is worth compromising on. No, so tough.
And there are bargains to be had out there. I mean, I've scrabbled around at a couple of exhibitions recently looking for potential buildings and haven't found the right thing yet, but I've seen other similar things for pennies, really, in actual real terms.
Well, look, there's lots of things out there. I mean, there's always Facebook Marketplace. There are people almost giving these things away. So I'm sure we'll be able to find something. Yeah, absolutely.
My aim is that by the time we get to the end of this part two, is we've spent as little as possible out of that £200 budget. £200 we've got left from our budget. That is the aim, to maximise what we've got left to spend in parts 3 and 4 when we finish off all the scenery and detailing bits up. So
right. Well, I think after that, less talking, more modelling, eh?
Okay. Absolutely.
I'll cut some track and finish off this whole railway so it will work then.
Perfect.
I don't know this bit works, just for make that bit work. Which is easy.
Magic Mike to the rescue.
Are you modelling on a budget of £500 or less? At TMC we have you covered with thousands of lovingly pre-owned items from locomotives to wagons, rolling stock and plastic kits, and much more. Look out for new listings on our website every Friday. And to be sure that you don't miss out, subscribe to our newsletter. Alternatively, if you're looking to sell your collection, get in touch with us by email or telephone for a customised quote. For more details, including how to get in touch with our helpful members of staff, visit themodelcentre.com.
Okay, so the next big part of our layout project is going to be to build the platforms for it. So this is actually the start of a new series of platform kits we've created with Phil from PJM Models. And we've created straight sections, ramp sections and a terminus section as well. We're going to be using one of the triple packs of straight sections, one of the ramp packs which you get 2 ramps in, and one of our terminus end sections as well. Now the one I've got built here on the layout, that's a test build. We've actually had to make a little modification to it since to make sure it's all going to work with a terminus station, but that's a good part of test building them. Within the kits then you get all the components you need to build the platforms, and you also get gauges with them as well to set the distance from the actually between a pair of tracks and the edge of a platform. With the straight ones they're 90mm wide, and to make sure you've got enough space for a locomotive to go across a crossing when you're doing a terminus like this, in the terminus end section like this one you also get a 94mm gauge in there, which means it just gives you a little bit of extra space, sets the platform a couple of millimetres further away from the rails, so there's space for a locomotive to sweep through a medium radius pair of points. Now you don't need a lot to build these platforms. All you need is a pot of super glue and a little bit of time. You can pop the parts out of the sprues by hand, or you can do it with a craft knife if you prefer. They go together really simply, and we're going to show you now actually how you can build all of these and how we're going to actually create the platforms for our new layout. So we're using one of our triple packs to build the straight platforms. Each length within that is 450 millimeters long, so you get nearly 1.5 meters of platform in a triple pack, so plenty for a layout like this. And simply start by pulling the MDF carrier away from the parts, like so. And I'll just do that with all the parts we're going to use for these platforms. There will be instructions with each of the kits as well, just to help through the process. We've also got two designs as well for the platform edges. Now I'm using the block style here, which gives you 2 layers of MDF blocks that go just underneath the platform edges. Or we do have a version with a much finer triple stack of brick edging to go underneath the platform as well. So a couple of different styles you can choose from depending on what style you want for your layout. You can see we've got the gauges here as well. These 2 parts here are the gauges. They're the standard 90mm ones, which I don't need for this project. And they also come with completely finished brick ends on them as well. So if you didn't want to have ramps, you can actually complete these with a full brick finish at the end for a squared off platform end, which you do see in some places now on the modern railway. So these are really quite simple to put together. So you're going to start with the base, and then you've got spaces to go in the middle, got the ends to go on the ends. You put the side down each side, and you put the top on top of that. So I'm using super glue. You can use PVA if you prefer. I like the fast setting abilities of super glue. Just drop each part into place. We bring one of the edges in, which makes sure that we end up with everything being straight and in line. And then to make sure we don't stick the platform to the baseboard at this point, I'm just going to lift it up and put a couple of dots of super glue alongside the inside edge of the platform. Working along a section at a time to make sure everything gets bonded correctly. This is one point where actually having a can of accelerator for super glue is quite handy. It just speeds up the drying process and makes sure the glue fully bonds. So we can get the other side straight on. I'm just going to repeat the process on that. Make sure we get it lined up correctly. And work my way along, adding dots of super glue in. Fix it in place. Then we can add these brick finished ends in as well. And you see they've got all the teeth, so they're really nice and easy to line up. They'll just slot in across the end. And like we did with the sides, get those glued into place. Got one of the great advantages of a laser cut kit there as well, is that the tolerance is so tight that they just slot into place. So that's the base of a platform section built then. The slightly more complicated part actually I think for this type of build is actually getting the top deck to seat correctly on top of the platform. What I like to do is I like to do a dry run just to make sure everything's going to line up correctly first, and there's nothing worse than getting halfway through gluing something and finding it doesn't quite fit, but that does fit quite nicely. And then because I've got a little bit of drying time on this glue, I'm just going to go straight around the edges. And using those tabs on the central supports. and line that straight up and press it all into place so it bonds with the super glue. Just go along checking all the edges, make sure everything's set as it should do. Just need a little bit more weight on it for the super glue to go off. That's our main platform carcass all built. So I mentioned before we've got two different edging styles for these, and those edges sit just underneath the lip of the platform here to finish them off. So you've got a choice here of this block style which we're using for our platforms for the layout here today, which is it basically gives you two layers of MDF like that, which once they're set into place you've got different layers underneath. Or alternative, we've got the triple plywood version here, which is a really fine detailed brick finish. You've got 3 layers then, which create a similar effect, but it's a much finer finish with the triple layer of plywood here going into the brick courses underneath. So like I say, both options for those kits are available from the Key Model World shop, so you can take your choice, see which way fits your layout best. The advantage with the plywood ones, I think they are actually the easiest ones to fit, because you've only got 2 layers. So literally I'm going to bead of glue along there. Pick up that strip of MDF, line it up at the end, line it up across the top, and that's it in position. And then I'll do the same again. Row of glue along there, pick up my strip of single blocks, line it up at the end, press it up against the base of the platform edge, and there you go, that is that job done. Now, there's one last thing to do on these platforms before we can hand them over to painting, and that is you're just going to need a little sand along that edge just to take away the pips where they were held into the MDF fret for these. But once that's done, that's ready for priming and painting and finishing off. So having done one, I've now got 2 more 450mm lengths to do for this layout, and I've got a pair of ramps, and I've got the new terminus section to build as well. So I'm going to get all those put together now, and we'll start showing you how all this platform's going to look when it's finished.
In 2022, Hornby launched its new TT120 range to the public in the form of 2 train set packs, 4 series of locomotives, and a handful of rolling stock, leading many to believe that this new scale was just ever going to be a train set. Since then, several other companies have created TT120 products, such as track and other accessories, and Hornby are working on further locomotives to add to the range. In this episode, we push this new scale further with the inception of 12mm bridge, a 10-foot by 6-foot layout using all the latest components available and giving you a comprehensive step-by-step guide of layout construction. Join us as we embark upon this fascinating journey in our brand new series, Building a Model Railway in TT120.
So as you can see, we've now got our platforms are assembled. They're in position around the end of the station as well, and this is set out exactly how I'd planned it to be. So we'd use one of the triple packs, so that's 3 450mm lengths of straight platform, 1 pair of ramps and the terminus section. Now, to make sure we've got enough clearance swinging through this crossover here for like a class 37 diesel or something like that, we use a slightly wider gauge to go between the platforms, which does mean there's a little bit more gap between the edge of the train and the platform, but that's a compromise that's necessary in the world of model railways to be able to lead through this pair of medium radius points, which in the world of real railways would be a very tight pair of points. If you do want a proper scale distance between your platforms, you've got no crossovers between your platforms, then we do have the 90mm gauges, which come as standard with the straight platform kits as well, so you can reduce that gap between the platforms if you wish to do so. So platforms complete, we've now got to move on to actually take these off the layout again, and we've just been talking through how we're going to paint these as well, because one of the things that's really important is we're going to have some little gaps and the little holes in the top of the platform which all need filling, so we get a nice smooth platform finish all the way through. So what we're going to do is we're going to take them all off the layout. I'm going to primer all the platforms top and bottom with a spray primer from Halfords, just one of their classic grey primer cans. And then after that I'll paint all the faces of the platform, so all the brickwork and stonework underneath, but I won't paint the top platform surface with its final paint colour until we've brought them back here, fix them down in position, fill the joins, and then we'll paint the platform surfaces with their final colour then as well. It just means that this modular system then is much more flexible in terms of what we can do with it, and that we can finish it off nicely.
Mike, this is looking fantastic, and the addition of the platforms, the layout is really starting to come to life.
Yeah, I think it is actually. I think a simple thing like a platform can make a big difference, especially with the weather track. We can start to visualize how it's come together, and now though we need to really visualize how everything else is going to come together, but not just on a physical level, but actually on a how we're going to afford it level.
Well, we have got less than £200 left, thanks to you, after all. So
I'd like to help.
Right, well, let's think about this logically. We've got a canal basin over here, we've got our yard over there, and obviously the main line coming in over here. So what do we think we need for our yard?
I think there's one really obvious thing we could do for the Scottish region, which I think Mark has a decent collection of wagons for as well.
Oh yes, we could do a timber yard. We've got some OTA wagons.
Yeah.
That's a good idea because, I mean, for scale timber, we can just get anything, branches and so forth from the ground. That costs nothing. We can put up a nice big pile over there.
Exactly it. I did think about doing a military theme, because we've got all the tank kits that are available from the Key Model World shop. We've got the nice war wells and war flats that have come out recently from Cav Alex and the Cura Scale as well.
Yep.
That'd be a nice theme as well. But I think the timber actually particularly for the Scottish setting as well, it's more appropriate, I think.
Yeah, and you've pretty much already got the hard standing going on. So, a little bit of textured paint and stuff and job done.
You could argue that the canal was there to service the timber industry, but of course that's now disused. So it kind of ties in with the whole history.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty to go at. And the other good thing is it provides plausible shunting manoeuvres as well. You can also use the yard for some engineers' wagons and other bits and pieces as well as you want to. So it gives you that little bit of extra movement, if you like, on the layout.
Now, to keep everything within budget, I thought we could look at the scale scenes range. Purchase, download, print, and build. What do you think?
I mean, there's some nice ones in the scale scenes range, and they're very much a case of printing out the textures, then mounting them on cardboard, cutting them together, and sticking them together, putting them.
And we do have
assembling them.
One small thing: we're all going to have to pitch in with building those, because we are not just on a monetary timeline for this, we're also on a physical timeline to get this thing finished as well.
Aren't we always?
Always, exactly. But it's always part of the fun of these. So.
Well, let's think about this logically then. I mean, you can't have a yard without some form of goods facility. So maybe in this space over here, we can put a small little goods shed, either one that you go through or just a loading, unloading one to the side. As far as the bridge or the entrance to the fiddle yard, what should we put there?
Well, it depends on the era that we're looking at, but on the basis that we're maybe looking at sort of 80s onwards, you could probably put actually a slightly more modern concrete-y structure going across there rather than the archetypal stone-built bridge that you might see on a lot of layouts, just trying something a little bit different, because then the concrete piling, if you like, would actually bridge across there and actually wouldn't constrict on the
there's a kit of scale things that does that as well. So you've always to do one from that range. So when they do a promenade store, which would be really nice as a stud next to the railway. They do, like you say, the concrete bridge, that would work really nicely.
Yep.
They do some nice platform structures as well. I mean, being a 80s onwards era station, we could quite sparse the buildings. We don't need loads of buildings. So, and then there's another question I think that's floating around, which I think I've got a good idea for. Signalling. Expensive to do.
Yes.
Or complicated to do. So think about the money versus time route. So that we could save time by spending money on signals, but then by spending the money on the signals, we can't have anything else. That would be it. You just build a signal on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, signals are a big investment, aren't they?
It also
especially if you want them working.
If you want, it depends what sort of ones you want. If you want to have colour aspect signals or thereabouts, I mean, they can be very expensive. But I mean, the simple Hornby ones, second-hand, can be very cheap.
They could, yeah. Well, there is a really cheap option. So one of the signal systems that was used in the Scottish region was radio electronic token block, which didn't have a physical signal. And there's a company called Sankey Scenics, which does a printed sheet of all the line-side paraphernalia for RETB. So we could get a sheet of RETB, and we could mount it on this plastic rod that comes in the pack. It could cost about £5-6 to do all the signalling for this layout.
Idea though, what about if we could find something for £5, an old Hornby signal, take the actual arm off, weather it, and just put it there so it's reminiscent of when signaling.
Yeah, we could still, we can add bits and pieces as we still fit. I guess at the end of the day, we need to get the majority of everything in place within budget. Yep. If we've got any pennies left over, then we can scrabble around and add those little extra bits that will make the layout pop.
Well, I think that the next logical step then, chaps, is we need to go onto the Scale Scenes website, pick a few kits, download and start building.
Yes, and divvy them out.
Definitely. Well, I've got some platforms to finish, so I'm already occupied.
Okay. Yeah, just saying.
I guess that's where we have to step
I
up.
think that probably is a case where we step up. That was
Hint. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Hammer.
Delegation at its best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hello and welcome back to my workshop again. I'm on the workbench today to get the platforms painted and ready to install on our £500 challenge layout. Now, as you saw, we built all the platforms, got all these sections are all fully built. I've since given them all a coat of spray primer. I used Halford's grey primer for a lot of priming of this type of thing. Just make sure the wood's sealed, makes it take the top coats much better. Now I'm going to focus on the side of the platform today. I'm not going to paint the tops. I'm going to do those once they're actually in situ on the layout. The reason being for that is a couple of reasons. Well, one is that it's just easier not to damage it with the paint finish whilst it's travelling back and forth if I paint it whilst it's on the layout. And secondly, also, I want to get all the joins filled nice and neatly, give a consistent paint finish to the whole of the top once it's installed on the layout. So I've got a multi-stage approach to painting these platforms. I start off using this MIG old rust colour. That's a base colour for the brickwork. And I do exactly like I've done here. So I'll paint them all the way along all these brick edges with that old rust colour. Once I've done that, I'm going to use a Humbrol sand wash to give a mortar course kind of finish to them. So that will flow into all the joints in the brickwork. And then finally, it's a triple coat of dry brushed finishing using 3 life colour colours. So I'm going to use their worn brick first. Then follow that with a little bit of old tile, and then finally I'm going to use this warm wood shade as well. So a nice collection of different browns and colours that are going to give us a nice brickwork finish. And then to actually finish off the final finishing touches, I'm use a couple of colours from the Urban Diorama set from MIG Ammo to do the sides and the stonework on the platforms. That'll just leave the platform surfaces to do to get these all finished off and looking the part on our £500 challenge layout. Right, I'll show you how it's done. Right, so the first colour to go on is this old rust colour, which is a good quality paint from MIG Ammo. Give it a good shake, and then we'll put a small amount out from these dropper bottles onto this plastic lid, which gives a nice bit of control over how much paint we've got out at a time and what we're doing with it. And then, as you would with any other brush paint, I'm just going to pick it up on the brush and start stroking it onto the face of these platforms. Now, see, I'm being quite liberal with it. I want it to flow into the joints at this colour stage, so I'm not worried about it, how it's going on really, other than making sure we don't get too much onto the blocks above the bricks. So just working my way along the platform edge here. So my next colour application is the Humbrol sand wash. Now I'm going to use this, I'm using a section I've already pre-painted with the base colour of the brickwork. What we're going to do with this wash is pick it up on the brush, which will let it flow into all the joints. Now it doesn't matter if you get a little bit of overspill onto the face of the bricks, because we're going to cover that up with the dry brushing later on these. So, but just letting all this wash flow into the brick joints, so it gives a nice effect of mortar line in the brickwork. So as you can see, this isn't a particularly fast part of the process, but it is a really important stage as well. Again, we're going to have to let this dry fully before we move on to the next stage of the process. So whilst those sides are all drying and the wash is settling in, I'm just going to use this grey colour from the Urban Diorama's colours from MIG Ammo to start painting all the underside of these platforms, so detailing the blocks that are underneath here. So as you can see, I'm just going to pick up the grey paint on the brush. I'm going to start working my way along the bottom edge here, just working very carefully with the brush to cut this in, make it nice and neat underneath the platform. That's a bit of a painstaking process this, so it will take a few minutes, but definitely worth the effort in the end. Now working just on a section here at the moment, so what I'll do next is I'll start going down to the next section to block all that colour in. to give all these block edges a nice stone finish to them, stone grey finish. Obviously on the finished layout these are going to get weathered as well, but at the moment I'm just focusing on getting the base colours onto them to start with. So notice here as well that I'm holding the platform upside down, and that's to make sure that I do get all these lower edges as well, because what I don't want is any show through of the original primer just along any bottom edges of any of these parts of the platform. Then coming straight down the leading edge here. Then to finish off, I'm just going to turn the platform over and work on the front face of it as well. And handily the lines on this actually help you to guide your paintbrush as well. As you can see, I'm just working quite freely down here. If there's any cutting in from the tarmac side that needs doing, I can tidy that up in the final coat of the tarmac as well. As you can see, it's really not taking very long to do these stone edges at all. So I'm going to get the rest of these done, then I'll show you how I dry brush the brick finish. So I've now got all the platform edging all painted now. It's all got the same stone grey colour on it. So it's now time to start adding the dry brushed brick finish to this. So I'm going to start with the life colour worn brick colour. Just give it a little shake. And then dry brushing is all about having a very small amount of paint on your paintbrush, so it's almost dry, but not so you've got no paint at all. So I dab a tiny bit of paint onto the paintbrush, brush it against the cloth, then we'll start adding it on top of these bricks. You can see it just gives a very soft coloration to the brick faces. Now you're going to keep repeating that process, building the paint finish, and lightly brushing over the face of the bricks to give them a brick colour. Now the beauty of dry brushing is you can build up the effect, so in some places you might want more of the dark brick showing through, in some places you might want more of the stone colour which we used as the wash for the mortar lines to come through. But you can really build it up as you wish onto here. And the other thing with this as well I've found is actually multiple tones really add to this as well. So just doing this with one colour it'll give you a nice finish, but actually putting multiple colour on top of this will give you a really nice finish. You can see instantly just how nice the effect is with this. You've got that really clear brick line showing through underneath the dry brush paint. So it's not filling any of the mortar course at all, just literally breezing over the top of the brick faces. That's one of the really nice things about these laser cut lines as well, is actually give you a really nice mortar course which you can work to as well. Don't forget as well, we'll be adding weathering over the top of this as well, so there's still more layers of colour to go onto this. Now I'm not even going to let that paint dry before I start adding the next colour, which is a slightly lighter colour called Old Tile from Life Colour. Again, it just gives another slight different hue to the brickwork. And this is all about building up depth of tone now. So again, I'm just working that over the top. I'm not looking to get a consistent colour application over the whole thing here, just light highlights in certain places. Then straight away as well, going for our third colour, which is this warm wood shade. So it's a much more darker brown colour. Again, just a tiny amount on the brush. Don't need much at all. Use that to just blend these colours together a little bit more as well. And if you now compare that with another piece where we've just got the raw finish on it, they're quite different from each other. So hopefully you agree, the bottom one with all the dry brush finish looks a whole lot better than the top one. So as you might have guessed at this point, I've got a lot more dry brushing to do, so I'm going to continue on working on these, and I'll see you back in the workshop.
So you're building a model railway. Here at TMC, the Model Centre, we cater for all your modelling needs, whether that's Peco track, Woodland Scenics accessories, even DCC Concepts layout control. And as you'll see behind me, we have a very small selection of one of many different brands we stock, such as Oxford Diecast, Hornby, Bachmann, even Acura Scale. Take a look at our website to see the full range of our products. And don't forget, every Friday we upload our new pre-owned listings if you'd like to save a little bit more on your layout build. Perhaps you're stuck with an aspect of railway modelling, or any other aspect of modelling for that fact. Our customer service team is just an email or a phone call away. For everything else, you can visit our website at themodelcentre.com, and if you're passing in the area near Beckhole, Whitby, pop in and see our showroom.
So we're now back in the main workshop, and as you can see, all the painted platforms are now on the layout. So the next important step to do is to get these all fixed down onto the layout. Now, as you can see, I've set them out as they're going to be, and as I mentioned in the video, there's certain parts, like for example this side of these platforms, I'm not going to paint that because it's never going to be on show, because there'll be a back scene here. I've also got my gauge out as well. So this is the 94mm gauge that comes with the terminus section of the platform. So that means we have the same gap all the way along through here. To set the distance between the platforms and the tracks as well. With all that now set out, I'm in a position where I actually can start gluing these components down into place. To do that, because I'm moving through this quite quickly today, I'm going to use super glue. Now, if you want a bit more working time, then using a PVA glue and adding some weights over the top would probably be a good way to go for actually to hold these down. But in my case, using super glue is the most quick and effective way to do this. So I'm going to start off with the terminus section. I'm going to put a fairly thick line of super glue because that will just extend the time it takes to actually set and cure. Just gives you a little bit of working time for them. Slot that back into place there. And if I've done all that right, my platform will be in exactly the right place, which it is. So that's now given us the starting point for where the lengths of platform are going to go down either side of these two tracks. Just keeping a little bit of weight on this for a few seconds just to make sure it does set properly. There we go, that should have got that now. I'm now going to work my way along this platform edge first, so I'm going to keep my gauge in the track there and nudge those sections out of the way. Just as I did before, fairly thick line of super glue down each side of this. One down the centre. Line that up with the terminus section, and again put a bit of weight on that to make sure that the super glue bonds correctly to the baseboard underneath. And one of the things I'm going to do straight away is I'm just going to grab my class 37 just to double check that it clears the platforms. Which it does perfectly just clear. So we're happy with that. So I can continue on the rest of this straight section of platform now. Now, one of the beauties of these laser cut platforms as well is by virtue of being made out of timber as well, if you do find you've got a bit which is just a little bit tight, you can sand it because it is timber, which is a great advantage. If you're using some of the materials, that can be much harder to actually reshape them, whereas an MDF platform like this is very easy just to sand a little bit off the edges if you needed to. You know, even with the edging underneath, you've got a good couple of mil to play with there if you needed to. So I just put a couple of dots of super glue at the bottom corners of this piece of platform as well. Now, once the ballast is in place, you won't see any of that. It should all look nice and neat. Like I said again, using super glue for this job, it does make it very quick and make it set in place very quick. But it does also mean you need to be really accurate with your positioning of the parts as well, because you don't get much chance to adjust once they're in place. But in terms of our build deadline, actually getting these done and glued down straight away is a great advantage for us. A small disadvantage of wooden products, which goes both for baseboards and for track, is that wood is a ever evolving thing. It attracts moisture, it will change shape, you can get a slight bow in it very easily. But it's a case of just taking your time over this part to make sure that if you have got something that's not quite the right shape, you can pull it back with the gluing. So you can see at the moment I'm just re-gluing this end of this section of platform, and I have to do the same at the other end as well, where I've got a little bit of lift. I'll be able to get both those sides tacked down fully in a moment. It's most likely it's actually my baseboard that's not quite perfectly level in this corner that's causing the problem here, rather than the platform, because all the other platform sections went in straight away without any problems. So this problem here could be one of a number of things. It could be, and it's most likely, that there's ever such a slight bend in the shape of the actual timber that makes the frame of the baseboard. So that's just causing this level section here with the platform just to be a little bit difficult to put in. It could be just that we've got a screw head that's slightly raised underneath here. That could be the problem. It could be that we haven't quite built this section of platform perfectly. We might have just got a little bit of bow in it. We assembled it, but either way, we've solved the problem because the platform's now fully fixed in place and matching its neighbour nicely. So right now we've got this final section to go in. It'll be a nice short section. It's gone in very easily. So that's the platforms all now in place. Like I say, there are a couple of things you can do. So if you did find that you'd built a platform like this and you found you had got a little bit of a tight clearance here, at the moment I've got two options with that. One is I can just shave the edge of the platform very lightly with a little bit of sanding. Two is actually at the moment, with the way the track is, I've just got a little bit of movement where I could pop a pin out and just ease the track over by sort of a millimetre, half a millimetre or so, just to adjust the settings on it. So there's a little bit of flexibility, which is what I think is one of the good things to bring up at this point in a layout build, is that even if you followed all the templates, even if you followed all the guides, check your trains actually fit through your platforms before you move on, because this is a time where you can still adjust things. If you ballast all this in now, then you can't really adjust anything at that point. Everything's fixed, sealed, and you've got no chance to move anything. So it's worth just testing and making sure that things do what you want them to do. Like I say, I've just got a tiny little catch there on that pipe. Very, very minor. But it runs nicely into that platform, so there's no problem there. If I just bring this Class 101 coach down, you can see we've got nice decent clearance all the way along there, so we've got no problem at all with that main platform. And that coach there perfectly clears the platform as well. And whilst we're testing as well, grabbed a Bachmann Mark 1 coach as well, just to make sure that's going to work through all these points and crossings as well, which it does nicely. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop this track pin up and just ever so slightly tweak that section of track over. I think that'll just give us enough clearance to solve the problem here. So there we go, now we've got perfect clearance for, 30 seconds to a minute of just checking things, making sure that things do run as they're supposed to do. Like I say, if we'd left that, ballast everything in, once we've ballasted it in, we can't move these tracks at that point because they'll all be glued into place. But I'm now confident we've got a railway that's definitely going to work and do the job we want it to do so.
Digital Command Control, or DCC as it's known, began life in the 1990s, and almost immediately sound files started to appear. The basic idea of DCC is that you can control multiple locomotives independent of one another without having to isolate sections on your model railway. In this brand new series, Mike and Jonathan explore the basics of DCC sound and how it all works, using decoders from Hornby, Zimmo and ESU, showing you how to fit and install decoders, speakers and stay-alives into both steam and diesel locomotives, so that you too can fit digital sound to your model railway. Join us as we present an introduction to DCC sound, exclusive to keymodelworld.com.
Right, so we've got the platforms in place, as you've seen, and it's now time to fill the gaps between them and where these little locating lugs are in the platform surface. Now, it's a nice simple process. It's just a part of putting together sections of platform like this. We're just going to tidy them up and make them look really neat. Obviously, you've got the choice with your own platforms at home. If you can get the joints really neat and tidy, or you're happy to have a line in between sections, then you can stick with it as well. But we want to get a nice smooth platform finish all the way through the station. So we use this knifing putty, which is a fairly fast drying filler. And what we're going to do is use the little spatula that comes with it, get a small amount onto the spatula. I'm just going to press that into each one of the holes in the surface here. Do the easy bits first, and you don't want too much at a time on this, so you don't want to be getting big piles of filler and trying to squish it around to make the finished look. You just want small amounts which you can use to fill the joints. So you can see as well, this is one of the reasons why we didn't paint the platform surfaces straight away, is that what I wanted to do is get all the platforms assembled like they are now and then paint them all in one go, once I've got all the little joints and noggins filled in. Obviously, once this filler's dried, we're going to have to give it a little sand as well, just to smooth it all off. That's another reason why I'm trying to use as little as possible, because the less of this we use, the less sanding I've got to do, and the less mess I've got to clear up. Right, so that's all those locating lugs filled in. So next thing is to go around filling the joints between the platform sections. So again, just a small amount of filler on the spatula. I just want to be pressing that into the joint here. Now, it might be necessary for me to come back and rescore some of the stones into this, which will be simple to do. The main thing is we'll end up with a smooth and consistent platform surface. So I've just cleaned the spatula as well, just to make life a little bit easier. Let's work across the last couple of joints. So there we go, platform's filled. Now I'm going to do my classic impatience task and wait for it all to dry. Then we can sand those down flat, and then we can paint all these platform surfaces. So whilst our platform filler is all setting and drying, we're going to move on and start on the ballasting process for the layout. So we're following a time-honoured route for this. So we've got loose ballast, which is a combination of a bag of Geoscenics ballast that I found in the bottom of my bits box, and some spare leftover fine grade, medium, fine mixed grade ballast from Woodland Scenics, which again is leftover from a previous project as well. So it saved a little bit of cost in terms of going out and buying things. I've mixed the two grades together in with this little plastic tray, so they're all pre-mixed into there. I've then got a old spray bottle, which came from car cleaning product, and I've filled that with water with a little bit of detergent in there as well, so we'll use that to wet the ballast once we put it all in loose. that helps the glue to flow into the ballast. And then I've got a mug here with some nice Key Model World Live branding on it, reminding of our show in April each year at the NEC. And in there is a diluted mix of PVA glue using a combination of 50-50 of water and PVA glue. And finally, to top it off, I've got my tools here, which is a paintbrush to tamp the ballast into place. And I've got a syringe to pick up the glue from the mug here and to drop that into the ballast once we've wetted it with the water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you in detail what to do with one length of the track. And then I'm going to continue on working my merry way around this layout, getting all this scene ballasted. So the first starting point is I'm going to use this ballast here, and I'm picking up a pinch at a time, and I go down the middle of the track first. And the trick with ballasting is never to put too much ballast on, because the more ballast you put on, the more you've got to move around to reach to the finishing point of it. Just quickly work our way down the centre of this length of track, all the way to the end. Then I repeat that process down each side as well. Now, this is again, it's about creating a nice little neat ballast shoulder alongside the railway. I'm always trying to keep it nice and neat here. It doesn't have to be perfect, because I'm going to come back to it with the brush in a moment to actually smooth it all into place and get it all really nice and tidy prior to us adding the glue. Now, it looks quite painstaking doing it by hand this way, but this is my preferences. I've seen lots of different ways of doing this. You can buy ballast spreading tools, which you can actually fill up and then roll down your track with ballast inside, which spreads the ballast. Or I've seen people use a teaspoon to pick up ballast and then to distribute that onto the track. There's lots of different ways of doing it. This is just my preference of my way of doing it and getting the best result I possibly can. Not so bad on a smaller layout like this, but it does take a little while when you're doing a bigger layout. So. And then I'm just working back down the other side of this length of track now, doing exactly the same. I'm aiming to put the ballast into the gaps between the sleepers and let the excess roll off to create the shoulder. Now, if you're doing your own home layout at home, you probably won't want to do your whole ballasting of your whole layout in one go, but here we're going to whiz through all of it in one. So. There we go, so that's the ballast laid loose into the track. So now I'm going to use this paintbrush. I'm going to work my way along the top of the sleepers, just brushing the ballast gently into place down the sleepers, so that all the grains sit in between each sleeper, not on top of the sleepers. And this is the point to take the care over, because this is setting the ballast into place, how your glue will actually seal it in onto the layout once you use the PVA glue. You can see they're using the brush to be able to really tidy up that edge nice and neatly. Do the same down this line as well. Right, so that's that section of track done. I'm just going to run my finger over the ends of the sleepers just in case there's any stray ballast there. Again, it's a very useful tool with the finger. It just pops the ballast back off the sleeper heads, where sometimes you don't want quite as much space to be covered at once as you do when you're brushing the centre. Right, that's our first section done. So, next job, water in the water mister. This has already got a little drop of detergent in it as well, just to help the water flow into the ballast. And what this does is, once the ballast has been wetted with this, it actually helps the glue flow into it as well. And if you didn't do that, what you'd find is, as you added the PVA glue in, it'd have a tendency to start to pull the ballast around. Whereas this way, you can see the glue is going straight into the ballast. Now, the other thing that's important with this method is a little bit of patience again. This will look like a big wet mess of PVA glue in a few minutes, but we're just going to leave it alone to dry, good 24 hours at least, before we start moving things around or touching anything. It should really look the part then. Also, we've got our base weathering for the track colour that I did earlier in the build, but we will add more weathering on top of this as well, so that will change some of the colours and tones. the advantage of PVA glue is it all dries clear as well. And just to make sure it's all fully sealed, so I'm going to put another couple of goes of glue over the top of it. Make sure all this ballast is fully saturated with glue, which you can see now it is. So now I've done that one length, I've just got the rest of the layout to do. So it's a case of literally repeating that process over and over again. Now the one thing I can't do at the moment is I can't put any ballast into this track here. You can see the sleepers are actually wet now. If I start putting ballast in there at this point, then the ballast is going to start getting stuck to the sleepers. So I'll come back and do that a bit later on. But I'm going to work my way along this track next, and I could do that end of that line as well, but I'll probably leave all that till later. And then we'll start getting a good looking layout then. So Mark, you've come back to inspect our work.
Do you know what? You've made a really good job of this, haven't you?
I thought you were going to say we made a right good mess of it.
And I'm not surprised at all, because I know you're really good at it.
What, just making the mess or doing the fine job?
Well, I'm not actually going to qualify that
I
one.
think it's both.
Yeah, probably.
Isn't
Well,
it?
that is one of the issues of PVA gluing a track.
Yes.
That it does go through a phase where it does just look a mess. And if you've never done it before at home, then actually it's something to be aware of, because don't try to fiddle with it, don't try and adjust it, just let it dry.
Well, to be fair, everything about ballasting is a messy job. It's a dusty job, it's a wet job, it's a sticky job, it's everything in between.
Yes.
So, but of course, the end results hopefully are worth it. And when you look at the layout now, with all the ballast down on all the track, plus the station platforms in situation, it really is coming to life.
It is. I'm really pleased with these platforms. So
They've turned out well, haven't they?
well, yeah.
The filling in the gaps as well, the joins and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, that's
That makes the difference.
a little fiddly task as part of these, but it's a necessity to make sure everything fits together nice and easily. So,
Yeah.
for example, we could just have put straight bars underneath for the supports, but then you'd have nothing to locate them on.
Yeah.
I think actually having the locating points means you always get these platforms square as well. I think it's a really important part of it. So.
That's right. So essentially, this brings us now to the end of part 2 of this build, which is now we have spent a little bit more money on this, haven't we? We had to obviously get the filler for the platforms.
Yes.
And so what's our budget up to now?
We're about £360 at the moment.
360.
Yes.
That's not too bad. So we've still got
take £1 or £2.
still got over 120, 130 pounds to go, which is really, really good. That's encouraging. And
We were at 301.65 at the end of part 1.
yes,
I bought a can of spray paint, which cost me £7.25. I bought the pot of filler, which cost me £2.99.
yes.
Purchased one bit of maths here, by the way, because it means that. And then we've got the platform kits. We've got a £29.99 set of straight platforms, a £7.99 set of ramps, and a £10.99 terminus section. So
Still, to get all of that for £360,
Yeah.
that's pretty good, because arguably this now is all the big stuff basically done. We've got our fiddle yard board, which of course you sprung on us last time, which is wonderful. So we can actually now say we've got the big bulky things. I guess the next thing is to be very frugal with that last £140 and work out how we can finish this on that. I think one of the things that's important to also mention is the fact that the ballast that we use, we didn't go off and buy new ballast. We had some left over, which we combined some geoscenics and woodland scenics to get what we've got here. And I'm sure we'll probably do the same thing with scenery as well.
Yeah, well, actually, we've already started reaching around some of the spare boxes, because naturally, I suppose we're in an advantageous position here that we build layouts quite regularly, and no matter how many layouts you build, you're always going to have little bits of leftover seating material sitting there.
Yeah, but the good thing about the model railway community is you're never alone. Like you will have a friend or maybe a club where they may have some, say, we've got half a pack of grass you can have, or here's some ballast that we didn't use for the last project. So you can always beg, borrow, steal, and get things for either nothing or next to nothing.
Yeah. Well, which brings us on to part 3 nicely, doesn't it? Next does. When you join us, we've got some thrifty ideas to create a set of really nice buildings for this layout. We do. We've got to start on the canal scene, which isn't quite so thrifty, but uses a really nice product to make it. They've also got some thrifty ideas about how we're going to do the water. So join us for those.
And of course, we will end up painting the platforms. Now, we didn't paint the platforms in part 2 because, as you can see, they're still a little bit damp from doing the ballasting because you do get some overspray with the water.
Yeah. So. And then soon, Mark, you'll be able to come back and play train.
Well, I'm looking forward to that point. Hopefully that will be very shortly. But, it's coming together. It's coming together very well. And we can develop some scenarios and operations and make it so.
Exactly.
And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing this layout in operation at Getz in October.
That's right, on October 12th and 13th, this brand new layout will be part of the Key Model World and Hornby Magazine stand at the Great Electric Train Show. That's on October the 12th and 13th at the Marshall Arena in Milton Keynes.
And a gentle reminder that the platform kits are in stock now at the Key Model World shop.
Absolutely. So look, if you have enjoyed part 2 and of course part 1 and you want to see how we completed this £500 layout challenge, then why don't you consider subscribing to keymodelworld.com for only $3.99 per month. You can watch every single one of our series and you get the whole back catalogue of all the videos, all the articles, every magazine ever, all at the click of a fingers. In the meantime though, thank you for watching and we'll see you in part 3.